Welcome, welcome, welcome to Bites on a Budget. We are excited to have Tamar with us today. But before I introduce her formally, I just want to share a little bit of information about who we are. And when we say who we are, I'm talking about WorkWell NYC. So my name is Brenda Dash, and I'm the Senior Wellness Education Manager for WorkWell. And hopefully, many of you, if not everyone, knows who we are when we say WorkWell NYC. WorkWell is the city's worksite wellness program, and we're here to help you live well as work well. Our goal is to create worksites that make it easier for our employees to live healthy, active lifestyles. And when we talk about health, health is not just the absence of disease. Health is physical, mental, financial, emotional, and we know that health exists on the spectrum. So we're here for you with health and well-being resources and programs to help you move more, eat well, be well, and take action to prevent disease no matter where you are in your health journey. We're also committed to addressing matters of inequity and providing platforms to educate and develop structural solutions to health and wellness, both in and out of work. So welcome today, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our presentation. So as I said, many of you are going to be familiar with this young lady, Miss Tamar, who's a registered dietitian, and she's here to provide some insight in terms of how we can eat while being mindful of our budget. As we all know, food is one of those essential costs that we can't get away from. So we have to understand how we can create that balance where we can be financially conscious while getting the best outcome in terms of our produce purchasing power. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Tamar. Thank you.
Thanks, Brenda. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to those loyal followers that have been with us before for some of our previous webinars, and welcome if this is your first one. So, like Brenda mentioned, my name is Tamar, and today we are going to talk through a few ways and strategies to help us make sure that we can still stay on track when it comes to eating well without spending all of our money on food. So our objectives for today are to learn how to budget, plan, and use what we have to help minimize food costs and to help identify strategies to eat healthy and save money at the supermarket. Okay, so we're going to talk through 10 tips. Now, one of the comments that I get very frequently is, I can't eat healthy, it's too expensive. Now, while you're not necessarily wrong, doesn't mean it has to be right either, right? If we were to go to McDonald's or Burger King or Chick-fil-A every single day, because it's cheaper, it's fast, it's convenient, right? But now what happens? By eating that kind of food so frequently, you're going to gain weight. Your blood pressure goes up. You increase your risk for developing heart disease, type 2 diabetes, right? So those diseases are not free, right? Those are going to cost you in the long run medications, testing strips, doctor's visits, ambulance rides, hospital stays. So when you look at it in terms of like a long-term investment, adding a few more vegetables to your grocery cart now really helps save a lot of your health for now and in the future, right? So it doesn't have to be expensive, and you can save money on your grocery bills and you can save on your health now. So a good quote I heard once that I'll use to start us off is, if you don't make time for your wellness, you will be forced to make time for your illness, right? So if you take a second now to really focus on your health, it's a lot easier to manage it than when it's a little bit too late. So hopefully that helps and resonates. So we are going to kick it off with our step number 1. And it might sound silly, but how many of you are the ones responsible for buying the groceries for your household? You can send a reaction or put it in the chat if you are the ones that are responsible for buying the groceries in your house. Okay, seeing a few. Now, if you are one of those, what happens this week if you don't buy the cookies or the crackers or the chips? Sometimes when I ask this question, someone answers, oh, somebody in the house will be upset. Maybe, but it also forces you to eat something else. Oh, fine, I guess I'll wash those grapes I had, right? Fine, I guess I'll cut up that cucumber and the pepper that's sitting in the fridge. So by not having it in the house, you're removing that first layer of temptation, right? And it literally puts you in a place where you have to eat something else. I'll give you a personal example, right? And the picture up here is of ice cream. Because I know that if I have ice cream in the freezer, I'm going to take a little bit, I'll make dinner, take a little more, and then after dinner, I'm going to want a little more. And then you sit on the couch and you watch a show and you eat a little bit. And then by the end of the night, there's only this much left. So you might as well finish it, right? Does that sound familiar to anyone else? It's not just me. So when that happens, for me, I'd rather just not have it in the house because I know what's going to happen. I know myself. If I really want ice cream, I'll go put on pants and shoes and go support a small local business, and I don't bring it home. I get a small kid-sized scoop, I'll walk around the block with it, but I don't let it in the house because I know what's going to happen. So by removing that first layer of temptation, you're setting yourself up for a little bit more success. When you also consider all the junk, right? The soda, the cookies, the crackers, the chips, the cakes that you're adding to your cart, they're not free, right? They're empty calories and they cost money. And so they don't nourish you and they also take away money, right? So by removing them, you'll either be saving money or you'll actually have more money to be spending on more nutritious products. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Yes, Jane, out of sight, out of mind. Exactly. Number 2. So this has to do with frozen produce, right? Now, there are a lot of benefits to buying frozen. Sometimes it gets a bad rep, but we're going to debunk some of those concepts today. So buying frozen, first of all, what's nice is that it is available all year round, right? If I go buy blueberries in January, and I can walk into Key Foods or D'Agostino or Associated, and I can find blueberries in January, but are they coming from New York or New Jersey or Connecticut in January? What do you think? No, right? So where are they coming from? Chile, South America, Mexico, right? Not this country. Now, if they're coming from that far away, were they picked yesterday? 2 days ago? 3 days ago? 4 days ago? You see where I'm going with this? So the problem is that they have to pick them, right, Sharon, at least a week or 2 prior. Now, if we know anything about produce, where do plants get their nutrition from? The sun and the soil. Perfect, right? Yes, Arlene. Yes, Stephen. Yes, Sharon. The sun and the soil. So when you pick these blueberries or whatever fruits early, they're really not reaching their peak nutrition because they weren't allowed to ripen on the vine long enough. So they'll ripen on the back of a truck. So they pick them early and they're not necessarily at their peak nutrition. But by the time they get to you, they taste fully ripe, right? So when it comes to frozen produce, right, being that right now it's like end of summer, all the berries, right, especially raspberries, things like that are in season now, which means that they're being immediately picked now when they're meant to be eaten now, and then they are washed, sometimes chopped and frozen. So they really retain almost all of their nutrition when compared to their fresh in-season counterpart. But when you're comparing it to a fresh out-of-season counterpart, then sometimes frozen is a much healthier option, being that it's also available all year round. The one thing I'll say is that the difference between fresh versus frozen, you'll find the most in their texture. one of the things that happens in the freezing process is that the cell walls burst. So, the water comes out and they'll get a little bit mushier. So, when it comes to frozen berries, these would be great to make like a compote, to put in smoothies, things where you're not like looking for that like crunchy berry flavor. The best way to defrost, if you need it immediately, you can take it like that. Some people microwave them. You can put them, in a pan or a pot just over the stove, and you can, they've seen people make like raspberry jam. They'll take like a bag of frozen raspberries and some chia seeds, and you can make stuff like that. So from the freezer, you can put, directly out of the bag into a pot or a pan. People microwave them. You can let it come to room temperature, whatever works for you. So what's also nice about them is if you're only one person at home, and you need a little bit of broccoli for your quiche, you can just take out a cup of broccoli and roll the bag up and put it back, in the freezer. So sometimes it's a little bit better, in terms of wasting food. You don't necessarily have to waste a whole head of fresh broccoli if you just need a little bit. When it comes to like the frozen vegetables, similarly, they will not get crispy. Like if you roast frozen broccoli, it doesn't really get crispy the same way fresh broccoli does. But if you're putting it in soup or, a quiche, something where it's going to get mushy anyway, it's totally fine. It is also nice for people with arthritis that aren't able to comfortably hold a knife and chop. So options like frozen butternut squash, things like that, where, it's a little bit tougher to chop up. Okay. This is everything we talked about. Fun fact, right? A cup of raspberries has 8 grams of fiber. So it's a perfect addition to your breakfast. You can top that on your yogurt. You can, defrost it. And if you, again, put it over the stove, you can use that on top of your pancakes, on top of your oatmeal, on top of your yogurt. You can throw them in smoothies, and it's such an easy way to get in a lot of fiber. Okay. Number 3. Brenda, stop me if we have any polls. Number 3, how many of us make a grocery list? Let me hear. Okay, I'm getting a few thumbs up. Not enough thumbs up. I got 1 thumbs down. Okay. Now I have a follow-up question. How many of us remember our grocery list? Right? 2 different questions. Based on your reactions, you know where I'm going with this, right? It's nice to make the list, but it's even nicer to remember the list, right? So it happens that we forget it. It's a lot easier if it's something like on your cell phone. I know some people, prefer the pen and paper, so it's a great way to, if you leave it on your fridge or you keep it in your bag with you so that it never leaves the bag, and then you take that with you to the store, right? Yeah, Sharon, it's hard it's hard to remember the list. We often forget it at home. But especially if we're trying to save money, this is one of those, top tips, because the question of what did I come to the store for? Oh, I needed lemons, right? And then you go and you buy lemons, but then you come home and you already had lemons. So it wasn't lemons that you needed. Or you go because you need lemons, but you ended up buying a bunch of other things and then you forgot the lemons. So they both happen, right? Both scenarios happen, but they both cost money, where you're going to end up buying more things that you don't need, or you buy doubles of things that you had in the house. So by sticking to the list, by taking inventory of what we had in the house before, sticking to our list really helps with that discipline of like, no, I don't need that. When we don't have a list, we're like, ooh, that looks good. Ooh, that's a new flavor. I haven't seen that one. Ooh, that smells good. Oh, I haven't made that in a while. I'll take one of those, right? And then you end up with a whole cart full of things that you're probably not going to get to. And what happens when we end up with all these groceries that we don't get to? You end up throwing them away, right? Now, when we're throwing them away, you're throwing away food, but what else are you really throwing away? Money, right? So when we're throwing away food, we're really throwing away money, also, your time. And how frustrating is that? So it's a really great way and a great habit to pick up to really prevent us from overspending and from creating all that waste. So this is an interesting statistic from the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, from 2022. That was the most current stat I could find, but that estimates 31% of the food supply in the US becomes food waste, which totals $161 billion worth of food lost or wasted every year. To put that into an individual perspective, the EPA estimates that each person produces 218 pounds of food waste per year. That's like the size of a fully grown person, right? That's a tremendous amount of waste. So not only are we, throwing out so much food, but we're throwing away so much money. So trying to have a list, sticking to that list, right, is one way to help. A few other things that can help are avoiding grocery shopping when hungry. Everything looks better and smells better when you're hungry. And when we're hungry, you think with your eyes, right? And you go, "Ooh, yeah, that looks good. Ooh, yeah, I haven't had that in a while. Ooh, you know what? I'll make this. Ooh, I'm in the mood for this." And then you end up with so many things that you're never going to get to. So it often leads to purchasing excess food, and especially like convenience and junk food items. Another tip is if you take a look at this picture on the screen, if you notice the perimeter of the shopping centers, right, the supermarkets, those are where the refrigerated and fresh items are, right? Which makes sense because they're closer to the loading docks on the perimeter of the store. You can be deliberate again about navigating the aisles, but start on the loop of the perimeter. Load up on the fresh fruits and vegetables, the bakery items, the seafood, the meat and deli counter, dairy, frozen foods. And then you can go through the center aisles and look for things like the dry beans, the canned beans, the whole grains, lentils, the tinned fish, crushed tomatoes, things like that. Another method is if you've ever been to Europe or if you are familiar with European culture and the model that they follow when it comes to like living in the city, similar to us, everything's obviously much smaller, and they buy what they need for a day or two. The market comes to town, like their farmer's market comes to town, they buy what they need for a day or two, and then 2 days later, they go back and they buy what they need for a day or two. This way of shopping creates a much smaller amount of waste. It helps ensure that most of what you're buying is fresh because you have to use it quickly. It also is like the opposite of what we do here, right? Where we go to BJ's or Costco and we buy enough groceries that we hope will last us a month. Is it normal that our stuff lasts us that long? Is it normal that our bread in a bag lasts for a month? What do you think? Is that normal? No, right? So yes, Kadeen, right? Like your aunt in England went shopping every day. So when you think of that, right, and you're just buying less, cooking less, making less, just what you need for a day or two at a time, it's also an easier way to save money. We're not stocking up on huge stockpiles of things. The majority of what we're purchasing is fresh. Okay. Number 4, take advantage of the freezer, right? Freeze leftover meals. If you make a big portion of something like a soup, are you really going to notice if you take out one container and you put it in the freezer? It freezes well. It's made up of water and vegetables and proteins, and it's a nice hearty meal to keep in the freezer for the next time. You don't feel like cooking, it's too hot, it's too cold, it's too rainy, you don't want to go out, right? Some other things that freeze really well are stews, chilies. You can make like a big prepared protein, like a bag of like, grilled chicken or roast chicken or shredded chicken or pulled chicken, turkey burgers, meatloaf, meatballs, things with like sauce freeze really well. And it's just a great way to line your freezer to set you up for success. Okay. Does that make sense? This unfortunately is not my fridge. You would laugh if you saw what my fridge looks like now. It's just like jam-packed with a million things. But I wish this was my fridge. It's definitely a goal. It would be very helpful. But if you have little kids at home, you know it's hard to keep your freezer looking like that. Number 5 is to think about what the most expensive thing to hit our cart. If you're going grocery shopping, what's the most expensive thing I'm throwing in my cart? Yes, Lisa. Yes, Therese. Yes, Maria. Yes, meat, right? Meat and fish. Yes, Sharon, you're right. I'll talk about that in a second. That it's the meat, right? Now, it doesn't mean we can't have meat, right? Meat is very nutritionally dense. It has good protein, it has good iron, it has a lot of things that we need, but it eats up a lot of our money. So the idea here is this concept of meat extenders, meaning it doesn't mean you can't buy meat, but I don't want to spend all of my money on meat. So if I'm making something, say a chili, I can afford either 2 packets of ground meat or 1 packet of ground meat. And then what else can I put in my chili? You tell me. Beans, good. What kind of beans? Get specific. A variety of beans, pinto beans, navy beans, kidney beans, black beans. Yes, Stephen. Yes, Sharon. Yes, Katie, right? All the different types of beans. You can add mushrooms, exactly. You could add lentils. You could add peppers and onions and garlic and corn and a can of crushed tomatoes. So now instead of taking just 2 packs of ground meat, I have 1 pack of ground meat, 3 cans of beans, a can of crushed tomatoes, celery, onion, garlic, green pepper, right? Now look at my chili. I've increased the volume of my servings. So meaning I can serve more, I'm bulking it up with more protein, with more fiber, more nutrients. So it's much more filling and less expensive than buying another packet of ground meat, right? So someone mentioned mushrooms, an excellent meat extender. Any of the beans, nuts, right? These are things that you can just add to bulk it up. Another perfect example, if anyone's familiar with like Middle Eastern, Egyptian cooking, majadra is a dish that is made with rice, lentils, and like sauteed onions on top. So it doesn't mean you can't eat rice, but I'm bulking up my rice with more protein, with more fiber. I'll be more full from the lentils. It's more nutritious and it's a great side, right? So the idea is to kind of just expand the volume of what you're serving by focusing on some more of these plant proteins and getting them in there. Does that make sense? So if you take a look also, the tinned fish, right? So fish in general, right? We could probably all be eating a little bit more fish. We know how beneficial it is for us. But a fresh fish, you really only have a day or 2 to get to it before it starts smelling, right? And you have to use it. It's also expensive. So don't be afraid of our tinned fish, right? The fish in the cans or fish in the glass jars, the salmon, the sardines, the mackerel, the herring, the anchovies. These are all way more affordable. They last a nice long time. So again, the next time it's too hot, too cold, raining, you don't feel like going out, you know you have an awesome protein option on hand. Salmon and sardines with the bones. I know it sounds icky, but just like our bones have calcium, so do fish bones. So it is also a great source of calcium, especially for women as we get older. So, you know, it's a way to help bulk up our meals. Making tuna salad from home, right? It's another perfect example of using these meat extenders. You can open a can of tuna and you can throw in a dollop of mayo, but you could also add shredded carrots and celery and red onion, or my husband the other day said he liked pickles in his tuna salad. So, there are things that you can add to a can of tuna to help bulk it up. Does that make sense? So that is the plant proteins. Okay. Number 6 on our list is the supplements. Everyone's taking some sort of something, or their cousin's taking something, or their dentist's niece told them to take this, right? So unfortunately, in our country, the FDA very poorly regulates the supplement industry. So we don't often know how much or how little or what else is really in a lot of these supplements that we're taking. So they can add up very quickly in that they're very expensive and with a lot of false promises. They have a lot of additives and preservatives and a lot of isolated and concentrated nutrients that we don't usually need. A lot of people can just eat a little bit differently and get those nutrients from their diet. There was an article in the New York Post, I don't know if anyone saw this, like a month ago. This woman ended up with like stage 3 liver disease from taking like thousands of milligrams of turmeric because she read that turmeric was healthy for you and anti-inflammatory, which it is. But you could also add turmeric to your chicken and to your rice and to your stews, and you could put it in tea. So there are a lot of other methods to get these nutrients in that don't necessarily have to come in capsule form. There are certain exceptions, obviously, during periods of illness or growth, things like pregnancy, aging, certain nutritional deficiencies, like after bariatric surgery. There are definitely nutritional deficiencies that you need supplements for. But if you don't fall into any of those categories, think of supplements as a plan B and try to get everything we need from food and from nature first. Number 7. Okay, I'll start by saying this is a little different than that European method we just discussed a minute prior, but the idea is here to buy things in bulk and to stock up on things that can last a while because it's cheaper to buy them in bulk, right? So this applies to things like dried grains, canned or dried beans, crushed tomatoes in a jar or a can. These pantry staples that are sold in bulk, they don't go bad so quickly if they're preserved well, and they can last over the course of several months. It also applies to things like, 18 eggs versus 6 or 12 eggs. A family pack of chicken is going to be cheaper than buying a small convenient pack of chicken. So buying things in bulk can help save money than buying the smaller individual portions. Canned tomatoes are a great way to get in a serving of technically a fruit, but they taste like a vegetable. They can be used for things like soups, stews, chilies, pasta sauce. You can also make your own tomato sauce from a can of crushed tomatoes or passata or something. Just take a look at the ingredients. Make sure you're not buying one that has added sugar, that has a ton of other funky things in it, and it's so much fun and more delicious to make your own at home. You can buy lean meats when they're on sale and freeze them for later use. Other things that could be on sale in bulk, you can either prepare in batches and freeze or freeze them individually and then take them out as needed. So buying in bulk is another example of how to help us save a little bit of money. Store brand options. Usually a cost-friendlier option. Don't get hung up on the name. If this week Goya brand is on sale, awesome, buy Goya brand. If this week Key Foods brand is on sale, awesome, buy Key Foods brand. They almost always come from the same manufacturer with just a different label slapped on. And the way for you to know this is if you've ever seen a recall list, like, if Trader Joe's is recalling one of their, turkeys, for example, like deli turkey. It'll say also, goes by the name of, and you see all the different names that this turkey product is sold at under other supermarkets. So don't get hung up on the name product, is all I'm trying to say. Number 9 is to get creative with ingredients, right? So first of all, food is supposed to be an enjoyable aspect of life. It's not supposed to be burdensome. It's not supposed to make you miserable. It's always fun to try new things. And oftentimes, if we try new recipes, we'll get stuck with like a spice or a condiment that we don't really use again, or we don't really know how to use again. So take advantage of the internet and you can just type in, oh, I have cardamom. What are some good what are some good recipes for cardamom? And before you run to throw them away, getting creative with it, right, to help us avoid waste and maybe to expand your palate and try new foods and introduce yourself to different cultural dishes, to make sure that we're really getting our money's worth. So, and with that concept is also using these staple ingredients that you have on hand all the time in a multitude of ways to really help make sure that we're getting our money's worth, to introducing us to new flavor profiles, again, like food's supposed to be fun, right? So, for example, peanut butter. I know people can sit there and eat it out of the tub with a spoon. You can mix it into your oatmeal. You can mix it and make peanut noodles. If you've ever had Thai food, you can make like chicken satay, make like a peanut dipping sauce. A big tub of Greek yogurt. You can add it into smoothies. If you like Greek food, you can make tzatziki at home, right? Like that white dip that has shredded cucumbers and scallions and lemon and garlic, and it's so delicious. You can take Greek yogurt and mix it into your oatmeal. It's a 1-for-1 sub with sour cream if you're making, tacos or baked potatoes. You can make salad dressings out of it. You can make marinades with it. When I have a 2-year-old, when I give him yogurt, I just mix peanut butter or almond butter into it just for a little bit extra nutrients. Beans, obviously, if you can tell, beans are one of my favorite food groups, but they're the most versatile. You can take beans and you can, take chickpeas and tahini and make hummus. You can make chili. You can make a bean soup, black bean soup, white bean soup. You can roast chickpeas, the garbanzo beans, with olive oil and spices, and you can put them in the oven or the toaster oven and they get nice and crispy. And you can use them as croutons for soups and salads. Beans are also an amazing source of fiber. 1 cup has about 15 grams of fiber, 15 grams of protein. Helps keep you full, helps keep you regular, helps keep your blood sugar levels balanced. So, it's a really great staple food that you can have a lot of fun with. So, don't get sick of the kind of food that you're eating. It's something that should be fun and enjoyable. And, none of these things are too expensive. Peanut butter, yogurt, beans. Okay, number 10, our final tip for the day is pay attention to convenience, right? Convenience costs. They know that it's so easy and so fast and so convenient. So they're going to charge you a lot more for that, right? Sliced apples. You ever go to the supermarket and see sliced apples or sliced or peeled oranges or sliced fruit or, the mirepoix, the celery, carrots, and onions? It's very convenient. They're cut right for you, right? Now, when you look at that, yes, it's convenient, but what's going to be cheaper? Buying a carrot, buying a celery, and buying an onion, or buying a pre-cut mix, right? They know, and they're going to charge you for it. Frozen TV dinners. If you buy a meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and broccoli, and you buy 5 for the week, for that price, you could just make your own meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and broccoli, and it'll be way healthier than buying a frozen product. The food prepared at home that we make tends to be lower in overall in sodium and added sugar, and you're in control, right? Which is always better when it comes to food. Yogurt is the other picture up here. Yes, those little yogurts are very convenient, right? The little cups that are perfectly pre-portioned, but they're more expensive per serving, per ounce. It's always cheaper to get the bigger container. So if you have 2 healthy hands and you're able to scoop out the yogurt and measure it for yourself, it is always more affordable buying the bigger, less convenient tub. Additionally, going out to eat, takeout, fast food, restaurant foods, very convenient, but it adds up really quickly. Cooking at home is often cheaper than eating out and allows you, again, to have full control of the ingredients, right? So we really know what else, how much is in our food. And the example I gave before, right? Homemade tomato sauce from a can of crushed tomatoes, and you can add olive oil and garlic and basil, or you can make that recipe with the onion and the butter, versus, a jar of ragu that's going to have a ton of added sodium and even added sugar. People don't realize, but a lot of the tomato sauces have added sugar to cut the acidity. So it's a perfect example of how making something like that at home is a really easy way to save money and to save on our health. Okay, let's take a look at the Q&A. Again, just a reminder, if you do have questions, to please put them in the Q&A so we can take a look. What are your thoughts about the prepared meal plans like Fresh Direct to start things off? I think there are some great meal plan options out there. They're very helpful, I would say, if you have difficulty with portion control, being that they're, pre-portioned, And if you can stick to that, and you need a little bit of, inspiration or to get your feet off the ground, I think they can be very helpful. But again, pay attention to how much sodium, how much sugar are in those types of dishes. How do I decide every day what to bring to work to microwave that is more convenient than frozen pizza? That's a great question, Bella. There are so many, salad recipes, or I would say like colder room temperature recipes that you can eat, even something like a bean salad. You could take 3 different cans of beans and chop up cucumbers and peppers and scallions and radishes, and you can add tomatoes, you can add all these different vegetables to the bean salad, with like a nice balsamic vinaigrette. And it's something that doesn't need to get microwaved. You can eat it at room temperature, super filling. If you make a big batch of it, it also lasts you a day or two. So I would look for things like that. Cherie, in general, what grocery stores in New York City give you the best for your money when it comes to healthy grocery options? Ooh, this is a loaded question. I wish I had an answer. Unfortunately, there's no one. I would say I make an effort to go to Trader Joe's. I find their eggs and their full fat Greek yogurt tend to be the most affordable. Um, and then sometimes I'll buy bananas from, the guy on the corner because he sells them for, it's 4 for $1, which is pretty good. So I'd say living in New York, you kind of have to shop around. I know it's not a great answer, and I know that a lot of us are pressed for time, but if we're trying to save money, there isn't like one solution for everything. I don't know if that makes sense. Why are farmers markets so expensive? This is such a fantastic question. Also a very loaded question. They're very expensive because it takes a lot of resources to maintain a farm, and especially to maintain a healthy farm where the farmers care about, regenerative farming, where they're planting all year long to help, preserve nutrients in the soil and reintroduce nutrients in the soil. We could have like a whole talk just about this, but the idea is that farming takes a lot of resources. It takes a lot of time. If you had the pleasure of going peach picking or raspberry picking or apple picking in the fall, it's fun. We go for an hour or two, we take a picture, we do it. But to do that every day, all day, it's exhausting. So, there's a lot of behind the scenes that goes into producing a farm, let alone a lucrative farm. And then they have to come to the farmer's market and they're somewhere different every day. And that's gas and that's transportation. And it's not like they're growing them right here in Manhattan, right? A lot of them are traveling distances. So it's unfortunately, a cost that we end up swallowing. That makes sense. Yes, I have found that you sometimes have to go to different neighborhoods in order to get better food deals. Absolutely. Yes, good seafood deals in Flushing, Queens, but you live in Brooklyn. Yes. I had a coworker, Agnes from DIFTA, and she would always say she would like stop in Chinatown, get what she needed before she went home, because the produce and the dumplings were much cheaper there. I want to start buying bags of dried beans, but I've been unsuccessful in the past with soaking them overnight, and they still taste hard. So anonymous attendee, they soak overnight, but then you still have to cook them. Sometimes you have to cook them for an hour or longer. So it's not just the soaking them, there's that added step of also cooking them, and that's what's going to help keep them softer. You can add a little bit of baking soda while they soak overnight, and that will help break them down a little bit more quickly. So do away with gummy turmeric. Yes, Denise, you can get plenty of turmeric from your diet. Turmeric, if you remember from our food is medicine class, we talked about how it requires black pepper for optimal absorption, and a little bit of fat. So if you're making rice and you add turmeric and some black pepper and a little bit of olive oil, if you're making a golden milk latte and you take milk and turmeric, black pepper, a little bit of cinnamon, things like that. So that's the trifecta. How much turmeric seasoning is recommended daily or enough to make a difference? I think it's more of like a lifestyle thing if it's something that you try to make an effort to include a few times a week. In the winter, I'll try and make like a turmeric tea. So I'll take like fresh turmeric and I'll slice it up. I'll take fresh ginger and I'll slice it up, some fresh mint, some orange slices, some cinnamon sticks, and I'll make like a big pot of tea. Can you say more about how concerned we should be about consuming preservatives? You mentioned them as a concern for taking supplements, but don't tinned fish, canned beans also use a lot of preservatives. In general, we should be very nervous about a lot of the preservatives, being that they are linked to a lot of poor health outcomes. Things like tinned and canned products, in the canning process, a little bit of the nutrition is taken away, but for the most part, a lot of the nutrients are preserved. I'm more concerned about preservatives from like that bread in the bag, right? Like it's not normal that like our Wonder Bread or our soft whole wheat bread lasts a month, right? Like those are the kinds of preservatives that I'm more concerned about, less so about like canned beans and tinned fish, if that makes sense. Are there any foods you think we should not freeze, whether before or after preparation? Definitely. There are some foods that just don't freeze well. Off the top of my head, I can't think right now, but there are just some foods that don't freeze well. If you do freeze them, just make sure that you remove all the air and that they're in an airtight frozen container. Okay, let's see. I just want to make sure. Are processed foods, i.e. cold cuts, bad for you? Yes, Lisa, that would be a perfect example of a food that is pumped full of preservatives, right? Because it's not normal that like a fresh piece of meat should last a few months at the deli counter. So these are very, very filled with preservatives. Can intermittent fasting be helpful and maintained safely? Absolutely. Okay. I do, if you can put your questions in the Q&A, it's a little bit of an easier format to see. Any recommendations for dressing sauces not filled with corn syrup, salt, sugar, etc.? Al Weber, the best answer to that is to make your own. You are in control. I will give you an example. I was at someone's house for lunch and I liked the salad dressing, so I asked what was in it. And it was like a cup of oil, a cup of sugar, and I was like, whoa, 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 a cup of sugar? Why is there a cup of sugar in salad dressing, right? So when you're the one who's responsible for making it, you don't have to add a cup of sugar. You can add a teaspoon of honey. You can omit the sugar altogether, right? So there are a lot of things that you can do on your own that will help leave you in control of those nutrients. What was slide number 4 again? This one, take advantage of the freezer. Okay. Where did we leave off? Another anonymous attendee. Organic versus regular fruit. In general, I'm much more of a proponent of organic animal products rather than fruit. I think that a true organic farm is very hard to find. And unfortunately, in a lot of like industrial agriculture, so there's a list of about 900 pesticides that are approved for use. In organic farming, it's about 25. So it doesn't mean that it's pesticide free. And if you think about it, like if there are 2 farms near each other and this farm does everything they can not to use pesticides and keep organic practices and regenerative farming, blah, 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 and this farm does not, and they spray their crops with all 900 pesticides, and then a huge gust of wind comes or rain comes and the runoff, slides into my farm, right? That's not really avoidable. So I prefer organic in terms of meat, chicken, eggs, fish, milk, things like that. Okay, so Arlene, hopefully that answers your question as well. Do you suggest any app to plan meals or use leftovers? Yeah, I would just Google. Say what to do with green peas. Do Do you think taking fish oil and vitamin D supplements are worth it at all? Jada, I would sit in the sun and eat fish before taking supplements. That's my take. What would be an alternative to a bread in a bag? Oh, Tiffany, I love this question. To support a small bakery, to go find a farmer's market that sells bread, where these bakers don't load their breads with preservatives, don't load their breads with all these added, flour softeners and dough preservatives, things like that. And you could tell because after a day or two, it gets rock solid. So don't be afraid if that's what happens. A good hack is to take that bread and you can actually run it under the sink water for like a second. Don't soak it, but run it under a second and then put it in the oven. And that moisture will help bring back the moisture that had gone from the bread and it'll give it new life. What do I think of hemp seed for additional protein? Love it. Love it. My son eats them like sprinkles. How is the best way to get a meal plan, meal prep? Think about the foods you like. Think about how much you're willing to spend. Think about how much you do spend. Think about the time you put into it. Think about the foods that you're interested in and see what best meets your needs. What exactly is blanching? That is the practice of taking a vegetable, you could do with fruit too, into a pot of boiling water for about 10 seconds and then immediately transferring it into a bowl of ice water. And it's not really done to preserve nutrients. It's a little bit more about the color, actually. So like you blanch greens, things like basil to preserve that bright, fresh green. If you're making pesto, you could blanch string beans. Whereas like other methods of cooking string beans kind of make them like dull and dark green. So by blanching, it helps preserve the bright color, not so much the nutrients.
Hello, Tamar. Can I interject here? And I just want to say thank you. The questions are going on, which is amazing. This is great. So thank you all for submitting questions. But we are running out of time a little bit. So what I want to do is just share or post our polls because we want to hear from you. You're giving Tamar so much to speak on, so we definitely want to hear. So let me just post our poll, and the first one is program quality. Please let us know how you would rate the overall quality of this program. And it's always great to hear from you because it allows us to make adjustments to our programs, see if we should bring more of these types of programs to you. So thank you for answering. We definitely take the information to heart. All right, gonna give it a few more seconds because I have 2 additional polls to ask of you. All right, perfect, thank you. So thank you. Seems like a majority of people thought it was a very good or good to excellent program. So thank you ever so much. And let me go back. Knowledge. This is all equally as important. Did participating in this program increase your knowledge of the health and wellness topic being presented? And for some people, it's just going to be a reinforcement of information that's already known, which is equally as important. So I don't think there's any good or bad response to this question. Going to give it a few more minutes or seconds. All right, so I'm going to end that poll and I have one more. Thank you. And my last one is attitude. So I'm going to launch. Did participating in this Work Well program help you feel more positive towards healthy lifestyle behaviors? And I love Simone's response. She said, great program just in time for back to school.
Oh, good. Thanks, Simone.
Definitely. All right, and I'm going to end this poll as well. Thank you ever so much. So much important information shared today, and for you to be able to give us. So thank you. And talking about back to school, September is upon us. Can we believe it? So I just want to be able to share some of the upcoming Work Well programs that are right around the corner. So September is the start of our worksite flu clinics. The flu is a contagious illness caused by influenza virus. It can make anyone sick, even healthy people. So take time to schedule your flu appointment. Please reach out to your worksite to see if they're going to be having a clinic. They are convenient, they're easy, they're quick. So definitely make an appointment for your flu shot. In September, we have our annual block party, and I want to shout out Block Party because we have so much fun when we get together. So the Work Well Wellness Block Party is back. Join us in the afternoon for relaxation, health screenings, flu shots, creativity, health awareness, and it didn't indicate here, music and dancing. So it's a great opportunity for you to come out, meet the Work Well team. We're going to be celebrating at 1 Center Street, again, September 17th between 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. So we look forward to seeing you. We also have, and this is the first time we're going to be having a virtual men's health panel. A lot of times people say, we don't hear from the men. Are men really interested in health and wellness? And we want to let you know they truly are. So please come in, join, participate, and hear from your fellow city employees as they talk to you about what wellness means to them, how wellness has changed as they move through life, and different strategies they use to keep themselves motivated. It's going to be an amazing opportunity to hear from your colleagues. So please join in or tune in on September 21st at 1 p.m. We also have a Real Talk short films about mental health. Again, this is a new program. It's going to be in person on September 28th or 25th, excuse me, between 6 and 7:30 p.m. It's going to be located at 22 Cortlandt Street. Take a break with Work Well NYC's watch party. Enjoy short films about mental wellness, conversations, and food. The films explore silent suffering, negative thinking, and the importance of awareness and compassion. So please come and join us. It's going to be an amazing time to get together to discuss such an important topic. We also have, I told you we have a lot of things for September, but it's back to school, so we want to keep your plate plentiful. All right, September 30th at 1 p.m., must knows for student loans. So I'm sure this is going to really attract many people. Join us for a live online session to learn about important changes to student loan repayments in 2026 and how to prepare. Through NYC's free partnership with Summer, you can get support to save time and money on your loans. And October, we had this here for Let's Bring the Sugar Down. It was mentioned today in the chat. This is our diabetes, our 8-week diabetes education program that is geared to people with type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, people living with pre-diabetes, or just interested in learning about a topic. Because as we know, diabetes affects over 38 million people, and the complications are huge in terms of how they affect our society. So please come. It's an amazing opportunity to learn all you need to know about this chronic condition and an opportunity to take action to prevent the complications associated with diabetes. So
Also, the link is in the chat for everyone asking if they can find all the events. Estrella just put it in the chat.
Thank you, Estrella. The link is in the chat. And as always, be the first to know. You can join our mailing list, and you will be the first to hear about these programs. So I want to thank you all for taking the opportunity to participate in this webinar. Tamar has done many workshops, and as you can see, they're very engaging. She provides so much information regarding nutrition and how food can impact our health. So let's continue the conversations. Please join our mailing list. Look out for our upcoming events so you can continue to enjoy WorkWell's program. Thank you. Thank you all.